The Minister for Communications has appointed the Deputy Chair of the ABC, Dr Kirstin Ferguson, and she joins me now. Dr Ferguson, thanks for your time today.
Thank you very much. And I just want to say, first of all, it's a real honour to be here. I absolutely love the ABC, total protector of our independence. Totally understand it's been a difficult week and that there are concerns, and we share those concerns.
OK, well, let's go into some of those concerns. The ABC board asked Justin Milne to step aside yesterday pending an investigation into the allegations of inappropriate interference in editorial matters. That suggests that the board still had confidence in him. Is that the case?
Look, I think the board has put the ABC's best interests at the forefront of their mind at every stage, before this week, all throughout this year. And we're very grateful to Justin for resigning yesterday. That was his choice, and we're very pleased that he made that decision.
Did the board believe that Mr Milne had compromised the independence of the ABC?
Look, that's a matter for Mr Milne or for Justin. I think he addressed some of that yesterday. Our focus is only on protecting the independence of the ABC, reassuring the fabulous 4,300 employees who are doing their jobs every single day, and making sure we're always acting in the best interests of the organisation.
Were the justifications that we heard from Justin Milne in 7:30 last night enough for the board?
Look, we're very grateful he resigned, and I think he needs to answer any other questions you might have of him.
It's been an incredibly damaging week, to say the least, here at the ABC. Do you expect that there is a cloud over the entire board at the ABC?
Look, I understand why those questions are being asked. What I can assure you is that in the boardroom, when we're there, and clearly I'm not going to go through boardroom deliberations, but the interests of the ABC, protecting the independence of the ABC, and ensuring that we are trusted and looked at by all Australians as an institution that we love. And I mean, none of us can imagine life without the ABC. That is forefront of every decision we ever make.
There are calls, which I'm sure you're aware of, for the entire board to go. Will you be looking at board member positions?
Look, I think if anyone does want to put the best interest of the ABC, that's not the right answer right now. And the matter of who the government might select to be board members is completely a matter for them. But what I can tell you is that our board is very united and very focused on only what's in the best interest of the ABC.
Let's go back to what has been the heart of the issue here, is the timeline. Who knew what and when? When were you made aware of the allegations of inappropriate interference in editorial matters by Justin Milne, who was then urging the MD to sack two senior reporters? When were you made aware of that?
Look, I think this is something that will all come out in the departmental inquiry which has been announced. So it's difficult for me to now go through that in detail, which I hope you can appreciate, because what we want is a fulsome assistance under the Act, however we can help with that inquiry.
Don't Australian voters and Australian taxpayers deserve a little bit more detail from you in that, asking that very simple question, when did you know what about the chairman?
I think what we need to remember and have a look at some of the facts is that we have wonderful journalists who we totally support, and my encouragement to them is ask the hard questions, continue to do what you're doing every day, shining a light on the issues that need to be uncovered. This is something that your board is fully in support of.
Okay, let me read this to you. And I want to ask you this. Did you receive documents at a board meeting where excerpts of communications between the former chairman and former managing director were shared? It read, "They hate her. We are tarred with her brush. I just think it's simple. Get rid of her. My view is that we need to save the corporation, not Emma. There is no guarantee they will lose the next election." Did you receive those documents at a board meeting?
Look, again, that will all be part of a departmental inquiry, so I am not able to go into the detail of when we saw those, but the bottom line is that Justin has resigned. He resigned yesterday, and we're very grateful for that decision.
Okay, if you can't answer specifically to the dates of the timeline, can you tell me when, if at all, any alarm bells were raised of the actions of the chairman?
Look, I think any time you've got a board of diverse views, we all have independence of thought, and that's always encouraged. And I can assure you that in all the deliberations we've ever had while I've been on this board, there's been diverse views, and we've expressed our independence of thought.
Are you confident that the board acted appropriately with respect to the chairman?
I think we've always put the interests of the corporation at the forefront of our minds, and we're very grateful to Justin for having resigned yesterday.
Did you personally raise any objections about the chairman earlier?
Look, again, that's not something I'm going to go into detail with you now, but I'm really grateful to Justin for his decision yesterday.
Has the board made mistakes in the past and in the past few weeks?
Look, the fact that we're talking about this now and that the discussion all week has been around governance of the ABC means we must accept that we have to regain trust and we need to focus entirely on the future for the organisation. And that's something we're really confident in being able to do. We've got David Anderson as Acting Managing Director. He is a fantastic appointment. I'm really looking forward to working with him, getting around to the offices and, again, focusing on what we do best, which is the incredible 4,300 staff we've got, not only you in front of the camera, but everyone behind the scenes as well. I'm very grateful to them.
Is it fair to assess the situation regarding the sacking of the MD, Michelle Guthrie, as this? The board was faced with the prospect of either sacking Michelle Guthrie and keeping on the chair, or the flip side, keeping on the managing director and sacking the chair. So I guess the question is, why choose Michelle Guthrie?
Look, I don't think it's fair to characterise it that way. The board stands behind their decision that it was in the best interests of the organisation for Michelle to finish in her role as the managing director. It was also in the best interest yesterday for the chairman to resign.
Did you vote for Michelle Guthrie to go?
We don't talk about board deliberations, and I'm not going to go into who voted where.
Did you or other members of the board do your own due diligence when Justin Milne, the chairman, presented the idea of sacking Michelle Guthrie, or presented the idea that she didn't have the leadership qualities that you expected of her?
This has been a discussion over some time. So there's been numerous discussions. It's a serious issue. It's not something anyone wants to see happen. So this has been a matter of a lot of focus from the board for some time.
So a lot of discussions, but did you do any of your own due diligence into Michelle Guthrie?
I've worked with Michelle for some time, and there were many enjoyable moments working with Michelle, and I sincerely wish her all the very best for the future. As I said, this has been a discussion over some time.
When you say some time, when were you first made aware about the deterioration in the relationship between the chairman and the managing director?
Again, it's just not something that I think is appropriate to talk about, and I think if we think about other people, viewers today who may know people that have been in the same position or have lost their jobs themselves, I think if they had the thought that their employer was on national television talking about that in detail, it's an unreasonable expectation, and I'm not going to go into that.
If you're not going to go into it, can you answer then, don't you think the Australian public need to know these details?
No, I think it's an unreasonable expectation. It's unfair, and it's on the person involved, and I just won't go there.
Okay, let's move to what we heard from Justin Milne, the outgoing chairman, last night. He said in his role of the chair, it's to be a conduit between the government and the organisation, not a wall. What do you see as the role of chair?
Only to protect the interests of the ABC. I see it as understanding and working with stakeholders from a whole range of areas. The government clearly is a stakeholder, but they are a stakeholder alongside many other stakeholders.
So what then, how would you respond, or what is the appropriate behaviour if a minister were to express anger or unhappiness with someone from the ABC? What is the appropriate way to deal with that?
Well, I get calls like that from my family at the moment who express anger and frustration with the ABC, and I listen politely, and that's the end of that. For a minister to expect that I'm going to do something differently or pass it on or make any comment about editorial processes or individuals, they're not going to get very far. So I'll very respectfully listen, but I think it's really important, and the very forefront of my mind is that we are an independent public broadcaster. We must never waver from that, and under my leadership as just acting chair until a permanent chair is appointed, obviously actions speak louder than words, but I can assure you that's my focus.
So you won't be inclined to get involved in any editorial processes or any of the human resources in hiring and firing of staff at the ABC?
Absolutely not. In terms of the board's role around editorial, we do approve the guidelines, editorial guidelines and policies, but they are then managed by management under David Anderson as editor-in-chief and with Alan Sunderland, and I have absolute confidence in their ability to do that.
What sort of communication have you had with the government in the last few days?
Personally, I've only had one call, and that was from the Minister last night asking whether or not I'd consider taking on the acting chair role.
Speaking of the independence between yourself and the board, indeed, and the government, did Justin Milne's close relationship with the government ever concern you?
Look, again, I'm grateful to Justin for having resigned yesterday. I think, as I've made it really clear, for me, I don't have a relationship with government. I am focused only on the ABC and independence. I'm looking forward to working with them as an important stakeholder, but alongside so many other important stakeholders. But first and foremost in my mind are the employees of the ABC, and wanting to reassure them that they are at the forefront of our decision making, and wanting to reassure them that their interests are at heart for us.
You mentioned that you don't have a relationship with government, but you look forward to working with them as a stakeholder. Is it possible for a chair or acting chair or deputy chair to have a close tie with the Prime Minister, such as that we saw of Justin Milne and the former Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull, and still maintain independence?
Look, that's a matter for them. I'm not going to have that problem to deal with.
There are many calls for an inquiry into what has gone on over the last few weeks. Do you welcome a more thorough investigation in a form of a Senate inquiry, so we can have a look at the timeline and of who knew what and when?
Yeah, look, we will fully support, under the obligations of our Act, any inquiry that is put forward. There's a departmental inquiry which is underway. We will be supporting that to the extent we can under the Act.
If we can look now to the board and the makeup of the board, there have been several criticisms from all areas of society today that the board is stacked with political appointees with no media experience. What is your response to that?
Look, a board needs a wide, diverse range of views. I have never seen evidence in our board discussions from my current board of any political interference or any views that come into our decision making. We are totally focused on acting on the best interests of the organisation. We know our directors' duties inside out, and that is all that drives our decision making.
That's all well and good to say that you know the role and you're aware of the fiduciary and the legal expectations, but does the ABC board, current board, have the breadth and the depth required to run the ABC?
I have full confidence in our ABC board.
You currently sit on 5 boards, is that right?
No, I sit on 3 other boards.
Sit on 3 other boards, but you have board experience in the past. Is that an overstretch? Are you able to discharge your duties as deputy chair? Because one of the comments that was made about the former chairman was that there was some overreach, that perhaps there was too many boards that Justin Milne was overseeing.
Yeah, look, again, that's a matter for him. For me, I've had all of 12 to 24 hours to consider this, and I'll be making sure I'm fully focused on all of my responsibilities, wherever they may lie. But clearly right now I'm very focused on the ABC. I, at the moment, seem to be able to deal with lots of things, but I love taking on new challenges. There is no doubt that this is a challenge, but I think leadership is about stepping up when someone is needed to do that. I'm honoured to have been asked, and I'm really looking forward again to working more closely with everyone here at the ABC.
The relationship between the chairman and the managing director has been outlined as a frosty one and one that deteriorated. How do you propose to work with not just our acting managing director, but whoever may take that role in a full-time state?
Look, I think in any relationships that I develop, in working relationships, it's all about mutual respect, being genuine and being authentic, and really understanding what's driving them and how I can help influence them to be the best leader that they can be. I'll certainly be doing that with David. David and I have a fantastic working relationship, and I'm really looking forward to working with him in his role as acting MD and my role as acting chair. One
of the criticisms of Justin Milne was that he was too involved, particularly with the decision to perhaps move the Triple J Hottest 100 off Australia Day to another day. Is that something that you agreed with him doing, and is that something that you would be looking at being that micromanaged within the organisation?
I think on that issue it's important to remember it wasn't changed. So it remained the recommendation of Triple J. We followed that. They did an extraordinarily thorough process in making sure they could come to a really sound decision, and the board definitely endorsed that decision.
You're a public advocate for women. In fact, you've written a book and supporting and encouraging women in leadership. How does it make you feel then, having been on a board that sacked the ABC's first female MD?
Look, gender isn't a determinant of leadership, and there are male leaders and female leaders who all have different skills and qualities. That said, I've always put the best interests of the ABC first. However, I will not resile from championing wanting to see more women in leadership and doing all I can to encourage that.
Whilst we're on the topic of women in public life and working, Mr Milne has been accused in the papers of sexist language about women. Did you witness that?
Look, again, I'm going to say I'm grateful that he resigned yesterday. More generally, I think all of us need to be mindful of our interactions in the workplace. We can all fall foul of things that people find appropriate, and that's really all I've got to say. It's pretty clear that, in my view, I think we need to have really respectful relationships in the workplace.
In your role as Deputy Chair, what can you tell the Australian public about the timeline for this, the new chairman, and what needs to happen?
Well, that's entirely in the hands of government, so I can't possibly comment on that. But in this interim capacity, I'll be acting chair, and I'll be fully focused on ensuring that I'm working with David and everyone here at the ABC on moving forward.
What's your first job at hand that you're going to tackle?
Look, I think right now it's just stabilising and moving us off from having to talk about ourselves. That's not something any of us want to see happen. I'll be working with David on that, and then it's really understanding where we're going in the future and working with David and the executive leadership team as a board, helping them to do the best job they can do.
Will you continue with this jet stream push, as we've seen the board pushing for as a major focus for the ABC moving into the future?
That's, again, something that we'll have to have a look at over the coming weeks and months, and I'm sure David and his team will have some views on that, and no doubt it'll come to a future board meeting.
Just finally, a couple of last questions. What will you do differently? How will you lead differently to the former chairman, Justin Milne?
Look, every probably acting chair or chair of the ABC for the past 80 odd years would have had a different style. I'm certainly going to be different from them. I'm someone I like to think is really genuine. I like to... What you see is what you get. I like to work with people and be really focused on helping them be their best, whether that's the person who's on the front door in security or whether it's David Anderson. And I'm really keen to meet as many people as I can and support them to do the best that they can do.
And finally, how will you restore confidence in the ABC for the Australian public?
Look, I think, as I said, actions speak louder than words. We need to knuckle down now and really focus on the future of the ABC with David and his team, but also ensure that loudly and clearly we're making it clear that independence is our #1 priority. We will always act in the best interests of the corporation.